check out our streaming schedule for this week. We've got tons of content in terms of the NFL and college football, as we're going live just about every single day this week. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single moment where we go live. And now, on with our feature presentation.
I don't think it's going to come as a shock to anyone when I say that I don't know a whole lot about playing in the NFL. I've never played in the NFL before, and I'll probably never play in the NFL unless a strike happens, the players who are brought in to replace the strike players go on strike, and the cycle of those players going on strike continues for another 1,000 turns. I run a 6'5" 40 on a good day. My nutritional plan is a steady diet of government cheese, and my tolerance for pain is that when I stubbed my toe last week, I only cried for 20 minutes. However, I'm just going to go on a limb and take a wild guess here and say that when you play in the NFL, you can't just refuse to play if your coach wants you to play. I know that sounds like a hot take, but I'm just going to assume that if you're healthy and your coach says to get out there and you refuse to enter the game just because you don't feel like playing, it's not going to end well for you. You can't just say, nah, I don't really feel like it, when your boss asks you to do something. And not just in the NFL, but in any line of work for that matter. Yet, as you can tell, that's exactly what happened last night if you're watching as of this video getting released, the San Francisco 49ers linebacker De'Vondre Campbell. I only have Packers highlights of him because he's been terrible with the 49ers. There are no highlights to speak of with his time in San Francisco. We just witnessed someone's career end in real time. On Thursday Night Football, the Los Angeles Rams defeated the San Francisco 49ers by a final score of 12-6, or 4 field goals to 2. It was one of those games, and the ugly game all but ended San Francisco's season in disappointing fashion. But the storyline wasn't how they played, but rather who played, and in particular, who didn't play. Because during the second half of the game, 31-year-old De'Vondre Campbell just refused to go out on the field and play defense. He's been garbage this season. Again, I'd be showing highlights of him with the 49ers if there were any highlights to speak of, as the former first-team All-Pro with the Green Bay Packers in 2021 has been an albatross for the Niners on defense in 2024. But the decision to just not play and refuse to enter the game is career suicide. Every player and a coach that spoke about the decision said that it was unacceptable, that you don't do that, and that they don't ever want anyone like that on their team. By the time you're watching this video, there's a good chance that De'Vondre Campbell will no longer be employed by the 49ers, as I think I've got a better chance of winning $1 million today than De'Vondre Campbell has at ever playing another down with San Francisco. And good luck ever playing in the NFL again. Good luck getting any team to sign a linebacker over the age of 30 who isn't playing well and who butts heads with his coach and just refuses to enter the game. The whole situation is a mess that seems almost unprecedented. I mean, you might know about what happened to the late Vontae Davis with the Buffalo Bills, where he retired at halftime during one game in the middle of the 2018 season, but surely this hadn't happened another time, right? Well, before I reveal the information that might surprise you that is going to be the crux of this video, this is the place to learn about all things NFL history, as we have a new video and a new live stream every single day. So if you like that sort of stuff, then be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel, and so that you learn some more stuff about NFL history that you might not have known about before. Thanks in advance for your support as we try and hit 70,000 subscribers. Well, what might surprise you is that this did in fact happen another time. Because this player right here is San Diego Chargers wide receiver Ron Smith. At the start of the year, Smith was somewhat of a Chargers hero and a legend for what he did in the playoffs. By the end of the year, he was a disgraced player who was released from the team in unceremonious fashion by committing the cardinal sin of any job, let alone the job of an NFL player, refusing to play and refusing to enter the game. Much like De'Vondre Campbell, this man right here, Ron Smith, refused to enter a nationally televised loss. And we're going to break down the bizarre controversy today in light of what happened yesterday on Thursday Night Football. Because this is the story behind Ron Smith, as in, one of the original instances of a player just refusing to enter a game. Before I talk about the actual incident in question and the fallout from it, we need some context to understand, quite simply, just who Ron Smith even was, as in the main man in our story. Smith hadn't done a whole lot in his NFL career after getting drafted by the Los Angeles Rams in the second round of the 1978 NFL Draft, as he only spent 2 seasons there and scored 1 touchdown, being a draft bust. However, when he got on the Chargers, despite not producing a ton from a statistical standpoint right away, he held a special place in franchise history when, during the divisional round against the Buffalo Bills, with the Chargers trailing 14-13 with just 2 minutes to go in the contest, he scored a 50-yard touchdown on a post pattern to give San Diego the 20-14 win, giving the Chargers their first playoff win since the 1963 AFL Championship against the Boston Patriots nearly 2 decades before. At the time, you could make the legitimate argument that Ron Smith's touchdown was the biggest touchdown in the history of the Chargers franchise. And to this day, it might still be a top 5 touchdown all time. Combine that with his 76-yard outing in the ensuing AFC Championship, which was a loss against the Oakland Raiders, and combine that with his 38-yard touchdown in Week 1 of the ensuing 1981 season in a nationally televised win over the Cleveland Browns on Monday Night Football, picking up right where he left off, and it seemed as though Smith was starting to find his footing and was starting to live up to his second-round billing, even if it was on a different team. At the very least, he was showing signs of competency, as even though it was tough to see the field a ton, thanks to one of the greatest wide receiving duos in NFL history blocking him on the depth chart in Charlie Joyner and Wes Chandler, when he was out there in those 3 wide sets, he was taking advantage of his opportunities. But that all changed during this game right here. Remember how I said that Smith scored a touchdown on Monday Night Football to open up the 1981 season? Well, that game against the Browns was the first of 2 Monday night games that the defending AFC West champion Chargers would have in 1981. And the second of these games would be remembered for Ron Smith for a very different reason. This game was on the road at the Kingdome against the Seattle Seahawks, and it was a pretty important game. The Chargers entered with a 6-4 record and were 1.5 games back of the Denver Broncos for the lead in the division. Beat a Seattle team that was 3-7, but was starting to find somewhat of a groove lately, having won 2 of their last 3, and you're right in the thick of things to win your 3rd straight division title and get a bye into the divisional round. Lose this one and drop to 6-5, and your playoff hopes and division title hopes are hanging on by a thread, especially with how competitive the AFC wildcard race was shaping up to be. And as you can tell from these highlights, or should I say, these lowlights if you're a Chargers fan, this game did not go according to plan whatsoever for San Diego. I'm not sure that the Chargers were sleepless in Seattle so much as they were sleepwalking, because despite the Chargers winning the first meeting 24-10 back in Week 5, the rematch was anything but that. San Diego got blown out, losing by a final score of 44-23, which was not just the most points that Seattle scored all season, just a few weeks after getting shut out themselves, mind you, but was the 2nd straight game where the Chargers allowed a team to drop 40 on them. San Diego turned the ball over a whopping 4 times while forcing no turnovers themselves, and they committed 13 penalties in the process. When you do that, especially on the road, good luck winning any football game, because you're immediately putting yourself behind the 8 ball with your own sloppiness. Despite the Chargers being favored to win this game, being 6-point favorites in Vegas beforehand to sweep the season series, the outcome of the game surprised a ton of people. But the real story of the game? It had to do with this man right here. None other than Ron Smith, who you don't see on the field for the game against the Seahawks, and there is a reason for that. Because even though he had 0 catches, 0 targets, and 0 yards, he was the storyline in the aftermath and remains the storyline more than 4 decades later. Because at some point during the contest, as crazy as it is to believe, the Chargers forced a punt. They allowed 44 points and only forced 2 punts all day, but they did in fact force Seattle Seahawks punter Jeff West to step onto the field. And back there to return the punt, in theory, should have been Ron Smith. But when Smith was asked to get into the game, he refused, saying that he wasn't warm and didn't want to get in there. He hadn't warmed up by this point, so he said, "Nope, I'm not getting out there. I'm not putting my body on the line just because you want me to go out there. Get someone else to return the kick, but I'm not going out there." And as you can probably imagine, that led to some tensions and led to Smith getting cut almost immediately after the game, never playing for the Chargers again. Keep in mind, the Chargers only had 4 wide receivers on the roster after the Monday night game, with those guys being Charlie Joyner, Wes Chandler, Dwight Scales, and Ron Smith. But Smith's act of insubordination and his act of defiance was enough for him to be released from the team and force the Chargers to carry 3 wide receivers for the moment. That's how bad it was. As Carl Peterson, the director of player personnel for the Philadelphia Eagles, described the incident as it was told to him by Smith, the coach said, "Go." Smith said, "I'm not warm." The coach said, "Get in there now." He said no. The coach said, "You're fired." Keep in mind, that was the version that Smith told Peterson. So this was the version that, of course, was going to put him in the most favorable light. He's not exactly a reliable narrator. But what did Smith himself have to say about this after getting cut by the Chargers? He said, "I was sitting on the bench the whole game. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't return the kick. I told him I wasn't going to do it and that I'd rather get out of there. I thought it was disrespectful that I was treated that way. They wanted me to be Wes Chandler's stuntman. You don't see Burt Reynolds jumping out of the 15-story window. You just see him on camera when he's already on the ground. I couldn't play that role. I wanted to be Burt. In other words, I don't want to play special teams. I want to be a wide receiver." And this explanation by Smith as to what happened and why he refused to go out there truly made no sense whatsoever. And I feel the need to describe what the heck this man was even talking about. Number one, you weren't warm? What do you mean you weren't warm? Dude, you're not a pitcher who wasn't expecting to pitch today, but now is to come into the game in the first inning because the starting pitcher tore his rotator cuff on the 4th pitch. Your job is to come into the game when called upon. That is your job. Your job is to be ready at all times. I just can't refuse to pick up a 911 call as an emergency dispatcher because I'm not warm and need to take some other calls first to ease my way into talking with others. That's not how this works. You have a job to stay ready and loose at all times, and you stretch before the game and take reps before the game. And if you can't do that, then that's on you, because football is a very stop-and-go game, so you always have to find ways to stay warm. Number two, I love how he said that he was sitting on the bench the whole game. You would think with a statement like that this means that the incident happened late in the 4th quarter. You might think that this happened with a minute to go or something along those lines. It would still be stupid because you can always just fair catch the ball, but at least there would be some logic there. Not a lot of logic, but some logic. But the source said that this happened on a punt return. This happened when special teams coach Marv Braden asked Smith to return a punt. The Seahawks punted twice during the game. Both punts came in the 1st quarter on their first 2 drives of the game. So by the whole game, he either meant the 4th play of the game when the Chargers had yet to even take a snap on offense, or the 2nd drive. That's like a receiver being upset that they haven't gotten the football yet. Meanwhile, the offense had called a grand total of 1 play thus far, with that play being a run. It's actually kind of amazing. It's like Ron Smith was a child. He wants more playing time, but when asked to go in and get his playing time, he says no because he's not warm, because he's been on the bench all game, even though the game literally just started. My head is in a knot trying to understand what on earth he's even trying to say here. And making things even more confusing is the fact that it's not as though Smith hadn't returned kicks before. In fact, as you're able to tell right here, Smith had been returning kicks sporadically throughout 1980 and 1981 for the Chargers. He wasn't very good at this, but it's not like this kick returning assignment came out of nowhere, especially since He literally returned kicks in each of the past 2 weeks after coming back from an injury sustained in Week 4 against the Denver Broncos. Ron Smith was being asked to do a role they had always done before. It's not like the Chargers were telling him to go out there and play linebacker. They were telling him to do the role that the team presumably had planned for him and the role that he practiced. It's not like this should have come as any sort of surprise. Both the fact that he was supposed to play and the fact that he was supposed to play that particular role. And the fact that Smith refused to enter because he wasn't warm when the game just started, and because he was upset about not playing thus far, when there was never even an opportunity for anyone in his position to play? No wonder the Chargers cut bait with him. Head coach Don Coryell didn't comment on the matter, but I don't think he needed to, because the situation just speaks for itself in terms of how absurd it was. How to go from a franchise hero to a franchise laughingstock in less than a year. Now, with regards to what happened with De'Vondre Campbell after the game between these two teams behind me right here, I'm fairly confident that he is not going to be a member of the San Francisco 49ers anymore, and that this is going to be his last chance in the NFL. I would be very surprised if he ever plays again and gets another chance. However, the same cannot be said for Ron Smith, because after this stunt that he pulled in the game against the Seahawks, he actually latched on with the Philadelphia Eagles and played a few seasons there, playing until 1983 before never playing in the NFL again. And it actually sort of worked out, as in 1982, Smith was second on the team in receptions and receiving yards, as during that strike-shortening campaign, he only trailed future Hall of Famer Harold Carmichael in that category, or those two categories, I should say. Safe to say, he made the most of his opportunity to some extent. I don't think De'Vondre Campbell is going to get that opportunity, nor does he really deserve it. Between guys like De'Vondre Campbell, Vontae Davis, Antonio Brown, Joe Don Looney, who you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, and the man you've been watching this entire time in Ron Smith, it's kind of amazing that this is a semi-frequent occurrence. At the very least, the fact that this seems to pop up once or twice every 10 years seems bizarre, seeing as all you have to do in order to make millions of dollars and be set for life is just show up, is crazy to me. But it's crazy how one moment can tarnish a legacy forever. It takes years to build a reputation and seconds to destroy it. Vontae Davis was a very good cornerback for a long period of time, but his lasting legacy is that he quit on his team in the middle of a game. De'Vondre Campbell was an all-pro linebacker, but his lasting legacy for years to come will be that he quit on his team in the middle of a game. And for Ron Smith, his legacy should have been easy. It should have been as the man who caught the long game-winning touchdown to defeat the Buffalo Bills in the divisional round to send the Chargers to the AFC Championship when their hopes of advancing were super bleak at the time. His legacy should have been as the man who, considering the circumstances, scored one of the craziest playoff touchdowns of all time. Instead, it's the man who quit on his team. So if I had a nickel for every time a six-win California team played a primetime divisional game and lost the game, and a player on said team ended up quitting midway through and refused to enter the game, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice.
Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and check out my other channels, JG8 for the history of college football, JG7 for the history of baseball, and JG9 News, where we talk about all things happening in the NFL. Join me every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll play live NFL trivia for cash prizes. And make sure to join me live, as we're on stream just about every single day. And thanks to all our Patreon members and our YouTube members for helping out the channel. See how you become a member and show your support financially in the description down below.